Hi, everybody. It's Sloan Rhodes with your weekly podcast for the week of February 20th, 2017. Today, I was thinking about this concept, this understanding, this spiritual understanding that what we see in others exists within us, right? And as I do every week, I selected an oracle card to kind of give me inspiration for the podcast. And so today I picked one from the Doreen Virtue Magical Unicorns deck. And the card I picked is entitled Light. And the text of the card says, see the light within yourself and everyone else. And so this is kind of my inspiration for this podcast. And I wanted to remind everyone that, the light we see in others does indeed exist within us, and also the darkness. And that is not always as comfortable of an idea or understanding to integrate and acknowledge, right? So to acknowledge and integrate. So just to let you know that I will post this card on my Sloan Spiritual Cafe Instagram account in case anyone wants to take a look at this card. But so let's just jump in, because it's it's so much easier to acknowledge that when we see something really beautiful in someone else, that there is a part of us that holds that beauty, right? Because that feels good to us. But it's less comfortable to look at someone who we consider to be filled with hate or bitterness and think, oh, that exists in me too. That's why I'm being triggered by it. It just doesn't feel good. But remember, there are degrees to all of this. And so the fact that, someone is spewing hate at you and you are very triggered by it, if this occurs, it doesn't mean that you hold that equal level of hate within you. It just means that you have part of that in you. Again, there's degrees to this. There's a continuum of on the spectrum here. So just remember that. So it can be a little easier to hold. But what's really, really nice about it is that it does create this understanding within self that you can shift these energies, right? So consider, for instance, your favorite celebrity or your favorite actor, actress, or musician or singer. Whatever it is about that person, and you see that beauty and that light in them. And even then, it might be difficult for you to think, wow, I see it in them so clearly. I resonate with it in them so clearly because it exists within me already. Sometimes that's equally hard to hold because we don't hold that kind of level of self-love for ourselves. But equally, whether you're looking at the light or the dark, we do indeed hold it all within us. And you can begin to shine the light of consciousness, shine the light of love upon this idea so that you can begin to play more easily with the uncomfortableness of this. Because it's very hard sometimes to acknowledge that we are as beautiful internally as someone that we just see as being, this god or this goddess, or that we are also capable of having, deep hatred and loathing for others that someone else may have for us or that we witness in another. And remember that we are not perfect. We are perfect beings, but we experience ourselves in the human form as imperfect. And part of our journey and our job here on the planet is to begin to be more self-loving, to love ourselves from a place where we can recognize what our ego would perceive as the bad qualities within us, and we can begin to look at them, change them, shift them, and create more love around them so that we no longer are at war with ourselves. And truly, there'll be no more war on the planet when each and every individual on the planet Earth is no longer at war with self. And that is a huge concept to really take in. But from a spiritual perspective, it is truth. And I think we all know that on some deep level. So let's look at this idea of the light. I'm looking at this card. It's a beautiful card, and it says, see the light within yourself and everyone else. And so there's this idea that we hold the universe within us. We are everything, right, within us. And so when we consider the light that we see in someone else, to connect that to the light within us, it's a very, I make a joke, it's a very illuminating sensation because we see the light in another and we connect to the light within us, and then suddenly we realize that we are all connected. And what's really, really nice about that is that when you can identify that part of yourself, again, it may be at a different level, or you may be at a different degree than the person that you are admiring, but you do hold it within you. And if you can identify it and play with it and pull it out more, then you can also begin to help yourself, because invariably what happens, we see the light in another, and then our ego steps in and jealousy comes in, or self-recrimination comes in. Oh, I'll never be as good as that person, or I could never do that, or these kinds of egoic, self-flagellating kind of words and energies can come in. So what's really, really nice is that when we realize that we are connected, that we have the light in us, and that's why we see it in another, then we don't need to play with so bitterly with this idea of jealousy, of looking at ourselves as lacking something, because that's usually what happens. We see the light in another, and then suddenly our ego steps in, and suddenly we're jealous of that person. And there's a twist, a turn that occurs a lot of times, and then that doesn't feel good either. And so you can kind of just acknowledge when that, if indeed that occurs, and remind yourself that that illusion that you are separate from it is indeed just an illusion, because you do hold it within yourself. And so you can be, if you do find yourself that you have gone into a place where you are suddenly feeling jealous of another, you can remind the mind that you hold that within yourself already. Say, for instance, it's someone has a beautiful home, right? And they seem so lucky and fortunate, and you can remind yourself of the places where you have beauty within your own home, whether it be your physical home or the home of your soul, where you hold beauty within yourself. And then you can grab hold of that and remind yourself that you also experience beauty in many, many parts of your life. And you can begin to amplify that energy. And then suddenly you recognize that you are connected to this other person. They may have manifested a beautiful home, but you also have manifested many beautiful things in your life, just in the thoughts that you think, or the words that you say, or the feelings that you experience, the relationships that you have, those moments of intimacy, or whatever it may be, the rose that that you're able to, the flowers that you're able to see and smell, and all of that. You remind yourself that you hold it all within you, and it just makes it feel as though you are not disconnected from the light that you see in another. And so let's talk about this idea of the darkness as well, because again, it's about degrees. So if someone is triggering you and you're looking at them and thinking, oh, they're so selfish, I cannot believe how selfish that person is, right? And you're really triggered for whatever reason, it's just really triggering you, and you just can't believe it, and you get, all in a huff and very self-righteous. And we all do this, of course, in certain levels. And but you can just be playful with it and say, okay, wow, I'm really triggered right now by this person's selfishness, or whatever it may be. And you can say, okay, so I'm really triggered by this. So how is this for me? How is this serving me? Because I'm really upset right now. And you can kind of look within yourself and say, okay, well, is there a place within me where I've been selfish at some point in my life? Maybe when I was, 5 years old. But regardless, it doesn't matter. You've had that emotion, you've had that experience where you have been selfish at some point. And then you can say, okay, so I may not be a selfish person necessarily now, but in the past, there has certainly been a place where I was selfish. There was a time when I was selfish, or there was a time when I was mean to another. A lot of times we'll be like, oh, I can't believe this person's so mean. They're always saying such mean things, and I would never do that, right? But then you remind yourself, you remind the mind, well, actually, I did have that time when I said those mean things to that person. And wow, I guess there's still room for healing within self as well. And it's just a way of taking responsibility for yourself, so you don't get so triggered. You don't feel like you're being swept all over the place by exterior circumstances and the people and things and circumstances that trigger you. Whether it be triggering you for the light or triggering you for the dark, it's always for you, regardless, for your own growth, for your own expansion, for your own understanding and integration of what you are learning here. It's your journey. You're only here for you, really, to understand yourself better. And so this is kind of a fun way to kind of play with the energies of light and dark that we see in others, and recognize that we hold them all. We're not separate from any of them at any point ever. And whatever is triggering us is just kind of a little wink and a nod for us to go a little deeper and begin to shed the light of consciousness upon it so that we can heal that part of ourselves so that we're less triggered by it in the external. Anyway, I hope that you found that helpful or enjoyable, and I will see you either on a YouTube video or at the next podcast. But in the meantime, I wish you much love.